Welcome, Mets fans, MLB fans. It looks like we have a breaking news situation. Devin Williams, a short while ago, has decided to sign a 3-year, $50 million contract to come to the New York Mets. Wow, folks, we got a lot to break down here. I got to say, I am pretty pumped. I've heard some reaction in the last hour, some negative, a lot of positive, but you know what? And I'm going to address some of the negative too, because even the negative, I don't know how you cannot feel happy about this. I don't know how you cannot feel happy. We just acquired one of the most talented bullpen arms in baseball. One of the most talented bullpen arms in baseball. Yes, I know he's had a rocky time at a couple appearances last year, but the guy is flat out nasty. Has one of the nastiest pitches in baseball. That changeup, the Airbender. I mean, this guy, whether he's a setup man, hopefully a setup man, but you know what? There is more to come. This is just the prelude to what is going to come. I like the aggressive nature that we see so early in this offseason where there's no nonsense, no crap, no payroll restrictions. David Stearns, right off the bat, has a clear-cut focus and plan. And I'll tell you what, people right now focused on Edwin Diaz. Trust me, that is part of the plan. That was always part of the plan. But why not have a little leverage in your pocket when you are negotiating with Edwin Diaz and signing a guy like Devin Williams with his credentials and his talent? Now you go to the table and you're still going to offer him the same type of contract, but you have some leverage. And you got to know that a guy like Edwin Diaz, seeing his job taken, he's going to want to come back. And there's already talk from MLB insiders that the Mets are working it out. So at this moment right now, I think we should all embrace this signing because it is genius. It is just something that all of us Mets fans have wanted for a very long time. David Stearns to be aggressive, to be focused, and to keep pushing the envelope. In the years past, we have not really signed guys like this out of the bullpen. AJ Minter was our most talented pitcher that we signed in 2 years. 2 years. And right off the bat, this is the second move? The second major move of the offseason. We already acquired a top-tier reliever. So again, this is extremely exciting, promising, and again, Devin Williams, there's a lot to be excited about this man coming to Queens. And you know what, Yankee fans? This is another blow to the Yankees, another talented guy on the Yankees for a year. I don't want to hear from Yankee fans. I know saying, oh, he stinks, he sucks, this and that. They wanted him back. But you know what? Their situation is completely different. Luckily, we have an owner who is going to go nuts with the money because right now our payroll is approximately $280 million. We are at $280 million right now with Marcus Semien on the team and with now adding $17 million a year, Devin Williams. That tells me that there is really no ceiling. There's no limit. You got an owner right now with $20+ billion, $23 billion, $24 billion. There's no limit. The casino deal across the street is going to put more and more money in the pocket of this man, Steve Cohen. And I don't think there's anything stopping us. I don't think there's really anything stopping the New York Mets except the New York Mets. Right? We're going to get the talent this offseason. Unlike last year and the year before that, when we were extremely conservative, this Devin Williams move right off the bat shows you that this offseason is going to be different. It's going to be different. Now, the relationship that Devin Williams had with David Stearns is obviously very helpful. There were other teams in the mix. certainly other teams in the mix, but he chose to come here at 3 years and $50 million. Now, I think that the fact that he had a bit of a shaky year last year, location was an issue. He gave up home runs in a couple big situations, which inflated his ERA. But towards the second half of the season, this guy was dominant. This guy was lights out. I mean, his strikeout rate is off the charts. And like I said, you have one of the most deadliest, nastiest pitchers in that bullpen. Not going to hurt, going to help. And again, I know we're worried about Diaz, but again, that is something right now that I think is not something to worry about. I think having this guy already in tow is going to make Edwin Diaz want to be a Met and want to finish the business, finish the deal, seal the deal. You know, Edwin Diaz has always loved to be a Met, always loved to be a Met. You know, in the last 2 months, you heard him and his agent come out and say the market is crazy. The market, everybody wants Edwin Diaz, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, all the top teams. So the Mets, in this regard, you got to have insurance. You got to have insurance, right? This move is not going to deter or is not going to curtail the Mets going after Edwin Diaz. They're going to still pursue him in the worst way. It's just that, you know, this is just some insurance, and having a guy like Devin Williams as insurance is phenomenal, is excellent. You know, I'm just super excited because it is just a very smart, aggressive move. And again, at the end of the day, adding additional talent is never a bad thing. Big Pump, you know, I'm extremely happy about this move. I'm extremely happy. I'm trying to find, you know, I'm hearing people say in the last hour, trying to come up with negatives. I can't think of any. I can't think of any negatives. You know, the thing that people are saying, well, you know, well, are we going to get Edwin Diaz? I mean, I would love to get Edwin Diaz. I don't think this move is going to change that at all. It's not. In fact, I think this is going to make us more likely to get Edwin Diaz, more likely. So, you know, you got to feel happy. You got to feel excited. You got to feel pumped up because, again, at the end of the day, you got a very, very talented arm in that bullpen. Now, he's going into his age 31-year-old season. He's got a career 2.45 ERA. He has 86 career saves. And, you know, he's a guy right now that, again, he's going to be a perfect setup man. But again, you don't know what's going to happen in the Edwin Diaz market. You don't. 10 plus teams interested. You got teams that, you know, I think the Mets want to be at 5 years. I think that's fair. A guy who's going to be, 33 years old. He's going to be 33 years old next year. Let me double check that. But he's a guy right now that wants a similar he's going to be 32. So he's going to be 32 next year. So the Mets, you know, I believe will give him that 5-year contract. Is there a chance where Edwin Diaz gets more than that? 6 or 7 year crazy contract? You know, if anything can happen when you have a bunch of teams, high market teams, anything can happen. But having a guy like this as insurance, as a backup is never a bad thing. Is never a bad thing at all. So I'm super excited, super pumped. And I think that this is a great move. I think David Stearns right off the bat, people saying the guy's not aggressive. People saying he's a small market GM, small market president. I think this early on in the offseason has shown that, hey, it's not going to be like that. Now you hear rumors that the Mets are going to pursue, according to Ken Rosenthal, they're going to pursue one of the top pitching free agents. That's going to cost a lot of money. That is going to cost a heck of a lot of money. It's been something that the New York, David Stearns specifically, has not been comfortable doing. But it just goes to show you that, you know, people think that guys don't change or people don't change. David Stearns is going to change. In the first 2 years, he has built the Mets farm system into one of the best farm systems in baseball. So if we acquire all the, you know, these talented arms, let's say we get Diaz, let's say we already got Devin Williams, we get a top starter, Framber Valdez. I did a video on him the other day. I'm still not through the moon on him, But if you want to acquire him as a number 2, and you go and you proceed to get a Skubal, you proceed to get somebody else as an ace, in a Mai. I mean, if you do that on top of a Framber Valdez, then I feel a little differently. But yeah, there is talk that the Mets are talking to Framber Valdez's agents and discussing some numbers. So, I mean, that's exciting to hear. Again, like, this is the report from Ken Rosenthal that he almost guaranteed that this is what the Mets are going to do. This is what the Mets are going to do, and I'm excited about that. All we know, based on what we see right now, is that the Mets are going to be one of the most aggressive big spenders this offseason, and all bets are off. All bets are off. And again, I was super excited an hour ago, a little more than an hour ago, to see that the Mets inked one of the best arms on the market already. So I'm super excited. What's up, William? All right, we got Williams. Now we got to get starting pitching. And you know what? That's a great point. That is what I was just talking about. And here's the thing. Some people right now, that's what, some people are kind of skewing that as a negative. Like, oh, we need starting pitching. Oh, we need some more of the bats. It's going to come. It's going to come. This is only big move number 2. We've had a couple small moves, 2 big moves. You got the Nimmo trade and the Devin Williams signing. Plenty of time left. It's December 1st. The winter meetings, they start on December 7th. We are going to be doing a bunch of live streaming. I took off the entire week of the winter meetings. So if you are not subscribed, subscribe. We're going to have a lot of fun. Anything coming out, and I believe a lot of stuff is going to come out. Again, we got Kodai Senga. Is he staying? Is he going? Kodai Senga apparently wants to stay. And you know what, folks? Kodai Senga a couple weeks ago, I was like more like, hey, maybe I don't care. Let's see if we can get something of value. But right now, I like the fact that Kodai Senga wants to stay. It shows all the other free agents, hey, pitchers like being with the New York Mets. Even Brandon Nimmo didn't want to get traded. So that is a good look to impending free agents, that players do not want to leave the New York Mets. Do not want to leave, especially if you are pursuing a superstar pitcher from Japan. You have superstar pitching from Japan. So that looks very good. So, let's maybe be strategic with the Kodai Senga situation, at least until we get some type of resolution about a guy like, Amai, Tetsuya Amai. I mean, that was my number 1 pitching free agent. I'd love to have him. Number 2, I love Michael King. I love his potential. I know he was hurt, but those are my top 2. But then on the trade market, all bets are off. All bets are off. If we make these big signings, acquire some talent through the free agent market, that leaves all our prospect capital, all the prospect capital in the bank, and we can use that to acquire a starting pitcher. We can use that to acquire a center fielder. We can use that to upgrade many different parts of the team. And again, this is only year 3 of David Stearns, and already we have a top farm. We're going to have a top payroll. We already know that. We have Steve Cohen. We have the most money in baseball on this team. So I'm excited. You compare how I felt at the end of this season, which was a huge letdown. I didn't know how are we going to approach this offseason. Were we going to be aggressive? Were we going to try to, pull the wool over the fans? No, we're not doing that. We're addressing actual concerns. Everything David Stern said in that press conference at the end of the year, we are doing right away, addressing, defensive, obviously you want to protect the runs. You want to fix the defense, and you know what? Preventing runs is all about defense, pitching, and addressing that bullpen situation like we did right off the bat. I think that it's just kind of just shows the direction that we're going to go. So I'm super, super pumped, super, super excited. And I think, Big Pump, I think starting pitcher, we're going to be very pleasantly surprised. Next move. All the reports are all the MLB insiders already saying that the Mets are heavily involved. Heavily involved. David Stearns is a very, very busy man right now. So, I mean, we have to expect that within the next week or so, that the Mets are going to have a very, very talented starting pitcher on our team. A new starting pitcher, that is. Yeah, that is another one. Schwarber, that was another. I don't want to say breaking news, but the latest news that the Mets will potentially be interested in the Schwarber market. You know what? I'm just, I'm pleasantly surprised, but I'm also a little hesitant because you hear that the Mets are involved in everything. In the beginning, I got so many messages. How could David Stearns and the New York Mets address everything? There's so many holes. There are so many holes. How could David Stearns possibly get everything? But, now right off the bat, you're seeing that, hey, you know what? You got the possibility that, yeah, we can get 2 starting pitchers. Yeah, we can get 2 top arms from the bullpen. Then we possibly could get a center fielder, a left fielder. So we could be touching every single damn big need this offseason, which is extremely impressive and something that I thought, would be impossible. But you know what? Nothing seems impossible if you have an owner like Steve Cohen. And, it's got to be a happy day in Mets land because people who are not familiar, the deal with the casino was approved, and that Steve Cohen, everything's going in a positive direction. So that means more cash flow, more money to the billionaire, and more money, more cash flow, and the Citi Field is the big major attraction. So by 2030, the New York Mets hopefully are going to be that prime prize product. Being built around Juan Soto, building this farm. I'm just super excited. I can't even say it enough. I'd rather have Kyle Tucker than Corey Bellinger. The thing is right now, I mean, Kyle Tucker, if we got Kyle Tucker, that would be insane, insane. I think the only way we get Kyle Tucker is if the market comes down to, I'll just say, I don't want to say reasonable, but a range that you didn't expect. Last year, when Juan Soto signed and the market was crazy, $800 million, everybody predicted Kyle Tucker, he's going to be a $500 million man. Right now, I think the projections are he's going to get 10 years, over $400 million. If that contract somehow got in the $300 million range and you could somehow get a two-way player of his caliber, maybe David Stearns, maybe Steve Cohen see the value in Kyle Tucker being that two-way player at a substantial discount from where he was valued at last year. Maybe that's intrigues them to a point where they're like, hey, we have no choice but to pull the trigger. But barring that, I think that a Bellinger is going to be a lot more likely because it's the price tag. The price tag is not going to be where Tucker is. And, if the Mets address everywhere else, getting a starting pitcher, getting two top end arms out of the bullpen, spending money all over the place, I'd be so shocked if they get another guy like a Kyle Tucker because it's going to cost you. And they have so much else other to do. But, when you have the resources and the money and a guy like Steve Cohen, and a guy like Steve Cohen is such a damn X factor. He's such a damn X factor. And I am so happy and pleased to be a New York Mets fan with him as my owner, because he's a guy that, hey, today, this could be our plan. We're going to maximize all our assets. Our payroll is going to be $350. Then tomorrow, another opportunity comes, and that could be Kyle Tucker's contract value is very reasonable. All right. Steve Cohen being the X factor could say, hey, that makes our team this much better. Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. $400 million. That's pennies to me. Let's go do it. But very rare. That's a very rare thing. Not many teams can do that. In fact, maybe 2 3 other teams can do that in all of baseball. So, I mean, having Steve Cohen, it gives that ability to have anything on the table. Well, folks, let me know how you're feeling. Hit that like button if you're feeling good. Obviously, if you're a Yankee fan, you got to be upset. You got to be upset because whereas the Mets are spending seems limitless, where the Mets are talking about adding a starting pitching, a big time starting pitcher, where they're talking about adding almost every single position in need, which seems a bit crazy. But you know what? I'm happy about it. The Yankees, who have talented players, you had Soto, you had Devin Williams. These are top tier talented players. They like New York. They want to be here. The Yankees aren't stepping up to the plate, not paying them. Hey, there's a spot for you in the New York Mets clubhouse if the New York Yankees aren't stepping up. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that's great. When the Yankees acquired Devin Williams last year for Nestor Cortez, I will be honest with you. And this is the first time I'm probably going to be honest about that trade because I haven't spoken about it. I haven't spoke about that trade. I was extremely jealous. Because I knew how talented this guy was. I really did. And when he struggled with the Yankees, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, I love Diaz. Hopefully Diaz doesn't opt out. But if we can ever have a super pen with Edwin Diaz and Devin Williams, and you have AJ Minter coming back, and you have a bunch of young arms, who knows, could be the next stud in that bullpen. Oh my God. I mean, I am so enthusiastic about it because, you see it. The dominoes are finally falling in place. So this is so good. Oh, William, I love this. Listen, I texted Steve and told him if he wants a championship, we have to go all out, compete against the Dodgers. We can win now and possibly win in the next 2-3 years. Well, William, if you did send that text, it seems like he did listen in some sort because this offseason, even though we're only 2 big moves in, all speculation, all signs point to a very, 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 very busy, but very busy spending offseason. We're going to spend a lot. We are going to shake this team up. And I know in the last couple of days, we spoke about a lot of things. We spoke about, we did a video on Framber Valdez, him coming to the New York Mets. We also did a video on some clubhouse drama that was, current between Soto, Lindor. You know what, folks? That stuff's petty. That stuff is petty. That's not going to win us championships. So what we are doing is we are bringing in guys who it is all about winning. Even Soto, he's a old business-like guy, all talented guy on the field. He's a champion. Juan Soto's a champion. Marcus Semien is a champion. He's a captain. He's a Gold Glove guy. He is a guy who's going to help bring this team together. And then Lindor and Soto, they are both millionaires. They are both talented players that we need to win. And those two are going to work it out nonetheless. So the chatter that happened in their first year, which is pretty normal. It's normal to have growing pains when you have new people coming together. So, I mean, was it detrimental to the Mets' overall success? Did it lead to them losing? It probably wasn't helpful in the dog days of August. And when they went through a lot of that losing, a lot of the negative stuff doesn't help. But at the end of the day, I don't foresee that as being a big problem going forward. So, you know what? That's something that the Mets are going to get past. And they're going to get past that by bringing in pure talent. And this is what they're starting to do. They are bringing in talent. And Devin Williams, Marcus Semien, those two guys are a great way to start the offseason. They are a great way to start the offseason. What's up, Sharon? Please sign Sugar too. I think this, and Scott, have a great night. I think this makes it more likely for the Mets to sign Edwin Diaz. I think it's no doubt about it. Edwin Diaz always speaking about how he wants to be a Met, always wants to be a Met. So I got to believe he wants to be here. I got to believe. The only thing stopping Edwin Diaz from signing is money. Money. If he believes that he's leaving a lot of money on the table, he's not going to sign. He's not going to sign. So I believe this is his number one destination. Do I believe that Steve Cohen is going to let another team drastically outbid him? I don't believe that. I do not believe that. So that being said, I have to believe that this move makes it more likely for Edwin Diaz to sign. And then you also see, you're Edwin Diaz, you're his agent. All right, the Mets just signed another possible replacement, another top option. The leverage that Diaz and his camp might have had to go to a year 6 or year 7, which may cause some hesitation from David Stearns and Steve Cohen, because then that gets ridiculous. Then you're talking about paying Diaz till he's like 38, and 6 years is a long time. That's a long time. So that may cause hesitation. So signing a Devin Williams may cause Edwin Diaz and his agent to say, okay, you know what? The 5 years, that's on the table, over $100 million. Do you want it? The Mets are offering it to you. And, we have a golden opportunity to team up with one of the best setup men in baseball. And I think that is going to be something so hard, so difficult for Edwin Diaz to pass up. I think another team would probably have to offer a crazy 6 or 7, $130-40 million contract for him not to sign with the Mets. So do I see that happening? I mean, anything could happen, but that would be historically crazy and, pretty risky for any team doing that. Hey, what's up, Will? Sneaky Stern strikes again. Yeah, no, honestly, I think that nickname is pretty spot on. I mean, these moves, especially the Brandon Nimmo trade, you're not really seeing it coming. I like the way the New York Mets are operating. I mean, and this is the way to operate. You shut your mouth and you execute. You shut your mouth, you execute, and you add talent. That's what it's all about. I'd rather not hear these moves and then have a big player sign than hear all the chatter. Oh, we're going to sign Kyle Tucker. Oh, we're going to sign Framber Valdez. We're going to sign Dylan Cease. We're going to sign all these guys, and then it never happens, because that happens with a lot of teams. They're rumored to sign everybody. Soto was going to the Yankees every day, all day, and then he signs with the Mets. So it doesn't matter about the rumors. It really doesn't. It matters about getting the damn job done. And we are seeing thus far, early on, a new, I don't say he's newly inspired, but David Stearns is different this offseason, folks. He is different. He's taken a very different tone to this offseason. The gloves are off. And I expect this to continue. This is not a one-off. This is not just like, oh, we're going to, he's going to be aggressive today and tomorrow going back to conservative, signing secondary, third scrappy players. No, he is signing talent. And that was my kind of gripe with him in the past. I know he was trying to build a farm. I know what he was trying to do, but it was just hard to give up on seasons. Now we are not giving up a season. We are going pedal to the metal on 2026. And again, it feels so good. It really feels so good. Now, again, I want to talk a little bit more about Devin Williams. We'll bring up a couple of things, and we're going to break him down together as a player, because last year, obviously, some people are concerned that he had a 4.79 ERA. Now, the biggest thing that, when I saw bits and pieces of Devin Williams and I saw him, give up home runs, give up runs, I noticed he wasn't really locating his pitches. Obviously, you could be the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. If you're laying it over the heart of the plate, you're going to get hit, and you're going to get hit hard. Now, last year, Devin Williams got hit much harder than he's used to. In his career, the average exit velocity off of Devin Williams is 85.9 miles per hour. Bottom line is, he doesn't really give up a lot of hard contact, but compared to his historical averages, last year, it was far higher than 85.9 miles per hour. The average exit velocity was 89.2. So almost 4 miles per hour harder batters were hitting. So, he wasn't locating his pitches, changeups, fastballs, hard of the plate, and the opposing batters were not missing. So again, David Stearns, a guy who is extremely familiar with Devin Williams, and do not take that, don't belittle that. That is huge. Who built Devin Williams? I know Devin Williams was very talented, but he came up under David Stearns, under the David Stearns pitching lab, under the David Stearns tutelage, under the David Stearns coaching tree, whatever you want to call it. He came up under the David Stearns organization in the Brewers. So that is extremely important. So if there's any guy that knows what makes Devin Williams tick and what makes Devin Williams effective, it is David Stearns. Now, if you track when Devin Williams started to go backwards, it started at the end of 2024 when Pete Alonso hit that massive home run in the wild card playoff game. That was when David Stearns, his first year not being with the Brewers. In his second year, obviously, second year not being with David Stearns, Devin Williams continued to go kind of backwards. So it's very good to see that these two are going to unite again. And, let's see if the old magic or, the formula that David Stearns had in the past, I got to believe that it is going to work beyond belief, because if you look at the advanced stats with Devin Williams, he has lost nothing. He hasn't lost any velocity. He hasn't lost any movement, or if he's lost movement, it's been very, very slight. So none of his movement, none of his velocity, nothing has changed talent-wise from Devin Williams. He's got the same exact repertoire that he had 2 or 3 years ago when, a year ago he had a very dominant season. But so nothing has changed. So again, I believe that we, again, added an extremely talented arm and that he's going to be very, very effective. People who are saying that this guy is going to be similar to what Ryan Helsley is, I don't think we could be further from, the truth. I mean, they are two vastly different pitchers, two vastly different pitchers. And so I don't foresee that at all. Could he struggle? Anybody could struggle, but he's not going to struggle like Helsley did. What's up, Joseph? Crazy what a week could do. And you know what? This is what I was saying. I'm saying a week did a lot. We got Nimmo. We traded him away. Simeon got a great leader, great defensive guy. Now we got Devin Williams, great piece out of the bullpen. Imagine what another week could do. Imagine where we'll be next week, midweek. Could we have another starting pitching, a top elite starting pitcher? Could Edwin Diaz be back with the Mets? Pete Alonso? I mean, you know what? And the Mets are going to be working very, very quickly. I don't think it's going to be, and I anticipated this early on. The Pete Alonso thing dragged out ridiculously long. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think the Mets are going to be very, very focused. And again, that's one of the aspects I liked about how David Stearns is operating. All right, you know what? Are we going to move forward? We are going to give you the max deal right now. Are you going to be part of the New York Mets organization? If not, we got to move on. I think he's going to be very methodical, or not methodical. I think he's going to be very, very laser focused with Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz. be surprised if any of that adds on because of the fact that the Mets have so much to do. They cannot waste any time. They cannot save any spots. Last time they literally had no other option. If Pete Alonso didn't re-sign with the New York Mets, it was going to have to be a Mark Vientos, or you sign somebody that's not really talented. So the Mets don't want to put themselves in that type of situation, and that's why I like this move. Because let's just say the Mets laid back and they wanted to utilize this money specifically for Diaz. Okay, next week you got 10, 11 teams in the mix. Diaz decides, hey, I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna sign with another team. And at that point, a week had gone by and Devin Williams came off the board. Now where are the Mets? Devin Williams is gone. Edwin Diaz is gone. So I love what the Mets did. You keep some insurance, and this move again doesn't prohibit or doesn't deter the Mets in any way from offering a big contract to Devin Williams. So that's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. And that's fine. Devin Williams is a National League pitcher. That's actually a great point, William. That is actually a very great point. He's coming back to the National League where he completely dominated. So that is actually a great point. So that's another. I would say something that he'd be effective in both leagues, but a place where he's comfortable, a place where he really dominated against teams that he's familiar with. That's also another huge benefit to that signing. So great job pointing that out. All right, so this, I know everybody's going through his baseball savant, but let's see if we can find some more things that stand out about Devin Williams. I always like to compare how a guy changes over the course of his career. I mentioned his movement hasn't really changed that much. His velocity hasn't changed that much. In 2023, his velocity was 94.2 miles per hour, average on the fastball. Right now, 2025, 94.1. So it was 94.2, 94.1. So virtually velocity hasn't really changed. He's still a 95 mile per hour. He could still get it up to 95, 96 mile per hour on the fastball. And he still has that nasty, deadly Airbender, 86 mile per hour changeup, which is the best changeup in baseball. That and one of the nastiest pitches in baseball. So, that's what makes him so unhittable, so great. He's got extension, 99th percentile. Ground ball, he generates a decent amount of ground balls in the 66th percentile. So that is also something if you're building a gold glove defense. Gold glove defense, you got a shortstop and a second baseman, both gold glove potential. We'll see with the Mets how they round out the infield. Brett Baty has been getting better. A guy who generates a lot of ground balls. Devin Williams in 2023, 77th percentile. Last year, a little less. So that is also, if we look at how things change, that is also something that the Mets can kind of work with him more, or, his location hurting him with generating ground balls, leading to more fly balls, leading to more home runs. If he can get the ball a little more on the ground, that may be the key to, or help him with the keys to success. So again, that's something in 2025 that was a little lower than normal. So he normally gets more ground balls, but still not bad at all. 66th percentile. Hard hit percentage. I said that his hard hit percentage was a little higher in 2025, but still, nonetheless, he doesn't get hit hard compared to everyone else. He's in the 85th percentile. If you compare Devin Williams to Devin Williams compared to years past, in 2025, he was hit harder, but still, nonetheless, comparing him to the other options, he's still very, very in high regard. K percentage, 97th percentile. Whiff rate, 99th. Chase rate, 97th. I mean, folks, this is elite. Elite. And again, average exit velocity, that is actually what went up. That's 89.5. So this is something. So again, the average exit velocity did go up in 2025. If you compare that to years past, see, look at this, folks. Remember, I mentioned about he wasn't locating some of his pitches, so he got hit harder. So years past, average exit velocity, 94th percentile. What changed in 2025? Average exit velocity, 89.5. Just shows you. I mean, the stuff didn't change. Still got velocity, still got movement, still has the same pitches. But if you don't locate your pitchers, any Major League Baseball player can tattoo you at any time. So again, and then, I would say from analyzing this real quick, average exit velocity, location, ground ball percentage, that was a little lower than normal. But this is all stuff that David Stearns, the pitching staff, the coaches could work with him because he's one of the biggest talents in baseball. So again, I am super, super excited about this. And then also too, like trending wise, in Devin Williams' career, when he was the most successful, he's really a two-pitch pitcher. He throws the airbender changeup. So they call the changeup the airbender just because of the nasty movement it has on it. So the changeup he has traditionally thrown more than the fastball. In years past, 2021, he threw the changeup 64% of the time, and then the fastball 34. But then as time goes on, he still threw the changeup more. But as 2024 hit, then he threw the fastball actually more than the changeup. So that was interesting. So I'm wondering, under Stearns and under that leadership, that regime, is he going to go more strictly changeup, 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 and then offset it with the four seam fastball? Because in the last 2 years, you saw that the four seam fastball was used much more than it had been in the past. So that's probably another thing that David Stearns could look at. Say, hey, why did we go away from using the changeup at the rate when you were this successful? All right. So I mean, again, we all know he's very, very talented. So that's not really an issue. The issue is what move is next. What move is next? And again, all signs right now kind of point to Edwin Diaz being a very, very viable option. Now, I'm looking at like past MLB insiders, what they said in the last couple hours about about Edwin Diaz. I think in the last couple hours, it's trending more to the Mets. But I would say before the Devin Williams thing, there was some. You know what? This is kind of interesting. This is kind of really interesting. A couple hours ago, there was a lot of talk and a lot of chatter about Edwin Diaz going to the Dodgers. A lot of talk, a lot of chatter, right? Does now that's not good if you're a New York Mets fan, and that's not good if that's your only option. That's not good. So, what does an aggressive team do? Well, aggressive team goes, well, I still want him, but I'm not going to let that affect my offseason. I'm going to get insurance. So I really do like the fact that the Mets got Devin Williams. Now, since the signing, now a lot of the MLB insiders are speaking that like, all right, I'm not hearing the Dodgers chatter that like 6-7 hours ago. Now, most of the MLB insiders are linking Edwin Diaz to the New York Mets. So I like that move. Uh, you know what? I this is very interesting logic. So I'm going to bring this up. Jorge, I hope Diaz leaves, and I am a Mets fan. Trade Lindor and stay. Okay, so obviously you give yourself away, Juan Solo. So I mean, the guy came in third in the MVP, and he's getting crushed. The more hate guys get, kind of tells you how good they are. Kind of tells you how good they are. So guys who receive hate, they should love it because obviously it really Juan Soto was one. I mean, like Juan Soto, it was funny. Juan Soto was getting hate at the end of the year for stealing bases, but supposedly padding his stats. All players should be as talented as Juan Soto and pad his stats. I mean, the guy is a phenom and only getting better. So, I mean, I find that stuff hilarious. I know, trade Lindor. It's funny. But you know what? Honestly, if look, I do understand this. If you are a team that is related to the Mets in some way, whether you're a Braves fan, a Phillies fan, a Yankees fan, I mean, it doesn't feel good to see one of your rival teams doing good things. It doesn't. I mean, you want to pull for your team. You want your team to be aggressive, like the Toronto Blue Jays last week or whenever they signed Dylan Cease. I give them a lot of credit for that. People are saying they overpaid, but you know what? Number one, they set the tone in the market, right? They set the tone, and they took one of the only talented pitchers. Not too many talented pitchers on the free agent market. You got Frambo Valdez, you got Tatsuya Amai from Japan, Michael King, maybe Ranger Suarez. So you got 4 or 5, a handful of guys. Dylan Cease was a guy they valued as the best. Go out, be aggressive. You think you're one piece away from the World Series or World Series winner. Is he your final piece? You sign him, and then you set the tone for the rest of the market. And the rest of the market, everybody has to be aggressive. Everybody has to pay up, and that's the tone the Toronto Blue Jays set. So I give teams credit when they're aggressive. When they're aggressive, and you could make a mistake. You could have egg on your face. You certainly can, but you also can reap the rewards and really have a lot of benefit. The New York Mets paid up last year, and they paid up in a big way, and they ended up with one of the most talented players in baseball. Most talented players in baseball. And again, he came in number 3 in the MVP race, led the league in walks, 2 home runs. I mean, phenomenal year, one of the best all-time years as a New York Met. So I'm super happy, and I'm super excited to see him going forward. And Lindor and Juan Soto, apparently them two had issues. They're 2 different personalities. Who the hell cares? They're making a lot of money. They will, as time goes on, I guarantee you that they will figure out how to work with each other, because at the end of the day, both Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto are professionals. They're all-stars, most likely Hall of Famers, and they will work it out. And at the end of the day, both of them want to win. It helps their legacy tremendously. So, that's another thing too. And, last year, our biggest weakness was the pitching staff. We're addressing that, and there's a lot of time left. But, the good thing is Steve Cohen, obviously he signs off on everything, but gave his blessing. David Stearns, you got a guy who in the last 2 years has been trying to build the farm. But now, again, the everything, all gloves are off. So I'm excited to see how this guy who, I've hailed as a genius, but I was upset and disappointed at year 2. But let's see how creative he can get. I think we're going to be very, very surprised in how he navigates this offseason. And I like the Nimmo trade. Was that a move that, a conservative GM president would make? No, not at all. He made a very aggressive, very strategic move on the first move. The second move, very aggressive, very strategic move in move 2. So, again, he's being very aggressive and very strategic. And, that makes me very excited. Yep. Well, he is certainly Stearns is building this 2026 team his way. All the pressure after the 2025 debacle, in my opinion, it was a debacle. The best thing is you did build up the farm. You did develop some of the guys who haven't been in the big leagues, because the younger kids who were in the big leagues, besides Brett Beatty, Acuna didn't do anything special. Mark Vientos went backwards, and Mauricio didn't do anything special. So as far as and Alvarez, the situation with him, he had a good 2 or 3 weeks. He was hurt. And other than that, he didn't do anything that special. So the youth, besides Brett Beatty, didn't progress the way the New York Mets would have expected. And then pitchers like David Peterson tailed out at the end. But again, the pitching staff was drastically overworked. And the Mets, David Stearns knows exactly what they need to do to address those many, many issues. All right. So one of the other things I just wanted to mention that Jeff Passan, he mentioned that the Mets were in the mix for Schwarber. We all know Schwarber had a phenomenal year last year, 56 homers in 2025. He finished in the second place position for the MVP. Honestly, he'd make any team. He'd give power in the middle of any lineup. And then also, too, if you look at the lineup right now, the lineup certainly needs power. I mean, the good thing is the lineup is far from complete. We are far from finished, but we certainly need a lot more punch in the lineup. You take Brandon Nimmo out, you really, I mean, at the end of the day, you have Lindor and you have Soto. Lindor, Soto, Alonso's not there, Nimmo's not there. Brett Beatty, still, you want him to still continue to prove himself. So the lineup has so many question marks right now. Adding a guy like Schwarber on a short-term contract, I could see as very, very interesting. But I'm only kind of envisioning that if Alonso isn't coming back, I'm really that's my big thing. Because if Alonso comes back, Alonso's probably going to play for his base a good part of the time, but he's also going to be that DH. I can't really see the Mets signing Alonso and Schwarber, but Schwarber certainly is a guy who can add the pop and the power if Alonso decides to sign with Boston, decides to sign elsewhere. But I do like the fact that the Mets are trying to provide insurance for anything. I feel last year the Mets let the market play them. They let the players play them. This year, it's a different story. We're not going to let Edwin Diaz play us. We're not going to let Pete Alonso play us. We are seriously going to discuss every backup, every alternative, and if Framber Valdez is the guy that the Mets target as, their guy, then you know what? I give him all the credit in the world. I did my analysis of Framber Valdez, but again, I did my analysis as him being the ace. The thing that, we got to consider is that the Mets might be signing Framber Valdez. Maybe he could slot in as an ace this year. Maybe once the playoff comes, maybe Nolan McLean develops himself as an ace. Maybe the Mets get a Tariq Skubal or they get somebody else. By the end of the day, the end of the season, you got Framber Valdez in the number 3 position in the Mets rotation. That is where I envision him going to the postseason because of the fact when he pitches, he tends to tail off as the season goes on. He tends to wear down. And since 2022, his playoff performances haven't been as successful. In 2022, he's dominated, but his playoff ERA is close to 4.5. So he's a guy that to me, I've seen the evidence where he wears down. But if he's your number 3 pitcher by the time the postseason comes, all right, he's a lot more viable. That is a guy I like to have as my number 3 pitcher. Also, another thing that I saw is that over time, his curveball wears down too. And when his curveball isn't as effective, that hurts his sinker, and it hurts his sinker big time. So again, it's all things to consider, but I'm sure Stearns, who's, pitching guru genius, he's the guy, famous for the pitching lab, he has all that taken into consideration. What's up, Richard? What did you? Is that Moya? I'm not understanding. I'm a little tired, so you got to let me know what you mean. Oh, okay, I know what you mean. All right, so that being said, let's do something right here. People were very concerned about the Mets payroll situation. So the good thing about Fangraphs is they update very quickly. Now, Fangraphs already has Devin Williams on the Mets roster. So let's see what the Mets payroll situation is currently looking like. So make this a little bigger. Yeah, sorry, it's still a little small, but okay, I'll read you what we need. Okay, so the Mets right now, if you could see this, Devin Williams, they have him slotted in as making $17 million. I read that there are deferrals. I think it's that money's being deferred where it's going to be $5 million a year. So even though it's put here for $17 million, you take away $5 million, the on the books number is going to be closer to $12 million a year. So it's good the Mets managed to defer some money some of the years, but the fact is the Mets right now, if you go down to the estimated payroll, it's $278 million. $278 right now. Now, we'll just round that up to $280 million. Now, the Steve Cohen luxury tax, where you're going to be taxed a crazy number, is a little over $300 million. Now they're at already $280. So what does that tell me? What does that tell me if we are $20 million away from the all-important Steve Cohen luxury tax number? And we don't have a first baseman. We're looking to sign a starting pitcher. We don't have a closer, and we don't have a center fielder. We have a bunch of things we're missing. What does that tell me? That tells me one thing. We don't care about salary this year. We don't care about blowing past the salary cap requirement. It's non-issue. It's a non-issue. So anybody who's worried about the salary cap this year, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know people are saying, oh, well, the Mets could trim off some money. They could trade away a McNeil, who's making what? He's making right here 15, 16 million. So they could shed money there, and then they could trade away a Kodai Senga, and then that could trim off another 14 million. I don't think the Mets are in that type of situation. Yes, they could do that. Yes, they could save some money. But even if they do that, even if they trade away McNeil, they trade away Kodai Senga, and they trade away 2 or 3 other players. Okay, so they'll save $30 to $35 million. You sign Pete Alonso and one of the small market player. You're still at $300 million. You're still at $300 million. So you're not going to save a significant amount of money where it's really going to be worth it for that to be a strategy. So my thing is, this is what I got to believe. The strategy is right now, short term, this season, the payroll doesn't mean a thing. The Mets may go to 400 million. The Dodgers did it last year, and the Mets may say, hey, you know what? This may be our not only opportunity, our biggest opportunity. And I think they're going to take advantage of it. They saw the Toronto Blue Jays. They went toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. And the Toronto Blue Jays, they exposed, in my opinion, the Dodgers. They exposed that you could beat the Dodgers. But to beat the Dodgers, you need pitching, 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 pitching. So the Toronto Blue Jays, what do? Right off the bat, they get pitching. The Mets, what are they going to do right off the bat? They're trying to get pitching. They got a great reliever in Devin Williams, and they're rumored in many rumors, latest one, Ken Rosenthal, to be in it for a big starting pitcher. Specifically, we hear Framber Valdez is a guy, his name is being tossed around by a lot of insiders. But bottom line right now, the Mets know what they need to do. They are very focused. They're extremely, very, very focused. There we go. Well said, Will. Well said. They do not care about the 2026 payroll. If they did, mark my word, they wouldn't have took on Simeon $26 million. They wouldn't have took on more money in that trade. They would have traded away Nimmo. They probably would have tried to get rid of his salary to try to create more salary. By them not trying to create more salary room in the Nimmo trade, told you all you needed to know. Told you all you needed to know. And if you weren't sure about that, adding Devin Williams and then rumored to add Diaz told you what else you need to know. That salary means nothing. At the end of the day right now, we have an impending lockout. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'll go nuts if that happens, but we have an impending lockout. So teams right now, especially a team like Steve Cohen, I think, they're going all out. And, a guy like Steve Cohen, who's $23 billion rich, it's funny. When he took over the New York Mets, he was valued at like $13.5 billion in 2020. Where 6 years later, how many people do you know that made $10 billion? I'll put it this way. How many owners, MLB owners? No, I mean, I don't think any other owner can make the amount of money that Steve Cohen generates. And the funny thing is, he is adding more revenue streams. So this guy could care less about the tax consequences, which is very, very, pleasant to hear. Give me 1 second. I got to turn on the fan in this room. It's getting very, very hot. All right. This is why this is why everything is on the table if you're a New York Mets fan. And this is what is kind of very interesting. I mean, in years past, I remember it was so easy to eliminate the free agent pitchers like Corbin Burns last year, Max Fried. The New York Mets weren't going to go in that direction. But this year, it's just so interesting because David Stearns has been a guy traditionally who does not give pitchers, especially a guy like Framber Valdez, who's 32 years old. He's 32 years old. So it's just, very, very shocking that David Stearns is changing his strategy, but it also really is kind of, telling about what I don't want to say a predicament, but where the Mets stand. I think the Mets right now have evaluated their situation. You got Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, 32 years old. I mean, right now you got guys right now in their prime, and you also have guys like Mark Vientos entering year 3. These guys, maybe next year, the year after that, some of these guys you want to keep, other guys you're going to want to trade, other guys you're going to want to cash in on. I think we're at a pivotal point right now where we are going to go all in, and this is the first time we're going to be witnessing it. And I mean, like I said, a $400 million payroll, that's not really off the table at all. That's actually very, very, very viable. Now I'm looking at the bullpen. The bullpen for next year, we have guys who are signed under contract that are bullpen guys. You have AJ Minter, you have Brooks Raley, Devin Williams just signed, Richard Lovelady, Reed Garrett, Brazabon. Okay, so that's not including any of the young kids. So you got about 6 guys. I mean, Clay Holmes too. Clay Holmes, are you going to have him as a bullpen option guy? I think that he did a very serviceable in his first year. But still, it depends. What do we do on the trade market? What do we do on the free agent market? Who else can we bring in? But having a guy like Clay Holmes who is flexible, can come out of the pen, or can be a viable starting pitcher. But right now, we're starting off with a couple of decent arms in the pen. Brooks Raley, Devin Williams, Devin Williams, AJ Minter. Hopefully AJ Minter bounces back after that injury. This year it's a contract year for him, so he's going to want to have a very effective year. So, we do have some decent arms out there. And then it's also going to be very interesting to see how the Mets consider some of their young arms. Like, is Dylan Ross going to be, he's a guy, very, very, very talented arm. He came up at the end of last year. He's 25 years old. He can get it up to 102 miles per hour. Very talented guy. Last year had great numbers in AAA. His numbers were very, very nasty. He had a 1.69 ERA, 1.69 ERA in 28 games. Does a guy like Dylan Ross, is he a guy that can make the bullpen? Could he make the MLB roster right off the bat? The Mets also have other talented arms. Ryan Lambert, he's also another guy. He pitched in Double-A last year. He was in 46 games, 1.62. He's also another fireballer who can get it up to 100 miles per hour. So, the Mets are adding arms. They're adding talent from the free agent, but they also have some very intriguing arms that they can instill in their bullpen as well. So, I like the type of minor league system that David Stearns has really created, in this first 2 years. Joseph, great question. Who is going to be the number one starter and how do we get better? Offense, that's the real question. Well, this right now is going to be, we're going to figure these out in the next couple moves because right now, the number one starter, obviously, most talented pitcher on the team, got to be McLean. Got to be McLean. You want to see more from him. Last year, it should have been Kodai Senga, but there's no way that you can have any of those old veterans consider them as your number one starter. Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, they're not your number one starters. Nolan McLean right now is the guy who has the talent to be there, but you still can't consider him a number one starter. So that being said, the number one starter for your opening day roster is not on this team yet. In my opinion, is not on this team. Now, if you sign a Framber Valdez, like I was saying, about a half hour ago, very talented pitcher, but he does have holes and he does have some drawbacks. If you sign him, in my opinion, he slots more as a number 2 and a number 3 for the playoffs. So if you sign him, you still don't have your number 1 pitching option. So you could sign another guy, but that would be ridiculously expensive. So you're going to get a Tatsuya Amai. I think he's a guy, in my opinion, who profiles more as a number 1. Or do you go out there and you try to do a trade? And my thing is, if you want to get a Framber Valdez, I'd love a trade for Tariq Skubal because that's a guy who is a clear-cut number 1 in my opinion. And, how nasty would that be? How nasty would that be if you have Skubal, Framber Valdez, Nolan McLean as your number 3, and then Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea can figure it out at the end of the rotation. And if not that, you still have some of your young options, Brandon Sproat, McGill. I don't know if you want to do something with him, but you still got David Peterson. So David Peterson would probably slot in as your freaking 4. I mean, that would be a nasty rotation. And, I know some people are saying, hey, that sounds crazy. That sounds nuts. I mean, if you're going to go up against a team like the Dodgers who are throwing out, these I don't want to say legendary arms, but like these really great arms every single day. I mean, you're going to have to compete at that level. You really are. So that's how my way of envisioning the starting rotation being built. But the offense, you're right, needs a lot of work too. The offense right now is bare. You got Simeon at second base. You got Lindor at short. You got Soto at right, but center field, it's a question. Left field is a question. You could sell me that one of those positions is going to be Benj. You could sell me on one of them. So you put Benj in left, but then you still need a center fielder. Then you got Beatty. You could sell me Beatty on third. You could definitely sell me Beatty on third. But then you have first base to fill. So the Mets certainly need at least 2 more offensive big options from the offense. Are you going to get Pete Alonso at first? That would solve one of the offensive needs. And center field options, Luis Robert Jr., is that a way you want to go down? Bellinger, I mean, are we going to go really crazy and just sign everybody? But, Bellinger and Alonso, that would solve a lot of answers offensively. But, that's why in the beginning of this season, the question was, there's just so many damn holes. And if you care about payroll, you're never going to be able to fill all these holes. For you to be able to accomplish and be where you want to be, you have to disregard payroll. You have to put everything aside. And then you have to also say to yourself that you're going to be ultra aggressive in the trade market because you're going to want to get that number 1 pitcher. And to get that number 1 pitcher, you're going to have to give up assets. And that's why I think, filling in the other needs with money, creates that position where you don't have to utilize any of those assets to upgrade positions elsewhere. I'm telling you, I don't like, Murakami. Okay. Murakami is a very, 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 I'll say interesting option. Very interesting option. But I don't like him for a couple reasons. I really don't. Now, a lot of people are going to the Murakami route if we're not getting Pete, right? We're not getting Pete. Now, Murakami is a guy who's an unknown player, number one. Number two, he's a guy that all scouts are saying has a lot of trouble with pitches over 93 miles per hour. He has a lot of trouble hitting pitches over 93 miles per hour. If you're going to the major leagues, I mean, that is super, super, super scary. Now, we already know he is a major strikeout machine. So he's a strikeout machine. He has trouble hitting pitches over 93 miles per hour, and he can't play defense. And we don't know how he's going to be in New York. We don't know how he's going to translate to the major leagues. And at the end of the day, he's going to be commanding a contract of around $100 million. He's going to be, Naylor got a contract 5 years, $93 million, which pretty much set the ceiling for a guy like Murakami. Now, Murakami is younger, and that potential is going to lead him to get a pretty serious contract. Plus, he has those gaudy numbers in Japan. But based on what the scouts are saying, I am very, very skeptical. And if I had to pick an option for 2026 and 2027, I would pay Pete Alonso. I certainly would. It's not like I'm getting an upgrade at first, and I'm getting a guy who's very, very suspect at the plate. So Murakami is not a guy right now. If I'm serious, I go after. I mean, he'd really have to be a plan C, plan D option for me. The Mets didn't win a World Series with him. Pete Alonso. I'm assuming you're talking about Pete Alonso, Richard. I mean, you know how many issues we had last year? We had virtually no pitching. I mean, like that was such a big issue last year, and every fundamentally we were just unsound the whole year. We were super inconsistent. But again, the lack of pitching puts so much stress and so much strain on every other part of the team. It's just very hard to win and compete if you have your starting pitchers getting pummeled. Our pitchers got pummeled from June on. So how are you going to win last year? In 2024, the only reason the Mets got 2 games short of the World Series was because of Pete Alonso. Repeating that, the only reason the Mets got 2 games short of the 2024 World Series was because of Pete Alonso. And to add on, the only reason why the Mets were a game short of the 2025 playoffs was because of Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso being one of the more clutch hitters down the stretch and all throughout the year. Pete Alonso was clutch. So, I mean, was Pete Alonso, did he have drawbacks? Yes. Defensively, throwing the ball to first base when the pitcher was covering, it was ugly at times. But like for me to say, oh, the Mets are not going to make the World Series or failed because of Pete Alonso, no, they wouldn't have been anywhere close. They wouldn't have any of the success that they had if Pete Alonso wasn't on the team. And you know me, like last year, I got on Pete Alonso a lot, so I'm not a Pete Alonso apologist. I'm just calling it like I see it. Pete Alonso had a lot more positives that he brought to the plate than negatives. And if you had a backup, if you had somebody out there, if you had an Albert Pujols that was 26 years old, somebody that I can get who was substantially better than Pete, or just an alternative option that was on Pete's level, I consider it. But the drop off after Pete Alonso is substantial, in my opinion. And Murakami isn't, he's just too many question marks for me to consider him as an alternative. All right, I'm gonna do you guys a favor. I'm gonna bring something up right now. All right, so this is Pete Alonso's month by month stats in 2025. Now, I saw somebody say that Pete Alonso faded down the stretch. Pete Alonso hit 300 in August, and he hit 293 in September. In August, he had 9 homers, 29 RBIs, hit 300 in August. In September, 7 homers, 16 RBIs, and batted 293. So you have a guy who batted 300, who mashed down the stretch, and when everybody else was struggling, this was one of the only few productive players in the lineup. And not only was he hitting home runs last year, he finally became more of a complete hitter. And his slugging percentage was close to 600 in those 2 months. He had an over 900. He averaged 923 OPS in August and September. One of the most elite hitters in all of MLB. And this is in clutch time. And that's what the New York Mets are looking at. And they saw Pete Alonso be clutch in 2024, and they saw Pete Alonso be clutch down the stretch in 2025. You know, I don't care about guys putting up the numbers in May in June. It doesn't matter. You want guys who are productive when it matters. I mean, that's why, like, I give Lindor credit. Lindor's had some very big hits down the stretch, but Pete has as well. And then also giving Pete, got to give Pete credit. He got killed in 2024. People wrote him off. Teams didn't want to sign him. He got 2 years and $54 million pity contract from the Mets. You know what? Guy came out there and he killed it. He crushed it. And, that's what you like to see. You like to see guys who don't wilt away. I mean, in April, after that insult, in April, he had one of his best months of his career, batting 358. This is April of 2025. He batted 358. He had 6 home runs, 24 RBI, 19 walks, batted 358, 483 on base, 684 slug, and almost a 1200 OPS. So again, you can criticize it for defense, but offensively last year, he was one of the best players in all of baseball, and he finished 11th in the MVP voting as well. So he did get some recognition on National League for that as well. Yeah, Richard, he does chase, but he eliminated a lot of the chasing last year. His chase. Let me see if I can show you that. Now, the problem in 2024 with Pete Alonso was he chased on the slider. The slider was his, nemesis, his arch rival. Okay, so this is Pete Alonso's baseball savant for last year. Not last year, 2025. Now you're seeing a lot of red here. And not only you're seeing a lot of red, you are seeing elite numbers. 96 percentile expected WOBA. Expected batting average, something I thought I would never see with Pete. Expected batting average almost in the 90th percentile for Pete Alonso, the guy who can only hit homers. He was hitting for average. Expected slug, 98th percentile. Expected exit velocity, 97th percentile. Barrel percentage, 98. Hard hit percentage, 96. Sweet spot, 85. Bat speed, 91. Now, okay, the chase percentage. So he was not terrible. He was 2 points above league average, 52nd percentile. 52nd percentile. In fact, year before that, 2024, he was 67th percentile. So he's actually better, in 2024, in that specific category. But what I wanted to show you is this right here, where he became much more disciplined. Now, the batting average against the fastball in 2025 was 307. So Pete absolutely mashed the fastball. Pete's always had phenomenal bat speed. His bat speed, as you can see right here, is in the 91st percentile. Just like, Murakami struggles with fastballs. Marcus Semien, his bat speed is in the 8th percentile. So that's another thing. Marcus Semien struggles with bat speed, not Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso has a very, very quick bat. In 2025, he hit 307 with the fastball. Breaking ball, 267. Off speed, 230. Now, I bring that up because in 2024, the breaking ball, the slider, he did terrible with. The breaking ball in 2024, he batted 168 against. He brought that up to 231. Very, very respectable for the breaking ball. And if we look here, the most pitches he receives is the fastball, 1531, and then the breaking ball is by far the second. Off-speed pitch is well in third place. So, you want to be a good fastball and a good breaking ball hitter, which he became or at least he became a much better hitter at those points in 2025. Also, another thing in terms of his discipline, 2025 was the highest year where Pete went the other way. I always said Pete's got all the power in the world to go to right field. He's got to be patient. He's got to wait back in the box and go the other way. That's when he's going to drive the ball to the right center field gap. That's when he's going to drive the ball over the fence. Now, in his career, 25%, or actually 24.9% of the time, he goes oppo. Last year, a career high, he went oppo 29% of the time. He wasn't pulling off the ball. He wasn't trying to pull everything. So, Pete was very, very, for him, very patient. All right. All right, folks. So we're going to wrap it up here, but I'm going to go put out some videos. So stay tuned. Thank you for staying in. I appreciate everybody so much. We got a lot of fun stuff coming. I'm very excited. Hopefully you are. The Devin Williams move, home run move, in my opinion. It's going to be a grand slam if they sign Edwin Diaz. But if not, they sign some significant insurance. So we will stay tuned because I think that the games have just begun. the everything's just starting up, and we're going to have a very, 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 very action-filled offseason, which I'm excited about. So have a great day, folks. Have a great night. Let's go Mets. And, I'm excited. Hopefully you're excited. I think I said that 100 times, but I am excited.